Hi, I'm Robert Robinette. I'm a librarian at Arkansas State University, and today I'm going to talk about how you can use the library and its different resources to find the information that you need to support the argument that you'll write about in your research paper. So I have your research paper here, and I see that you have to find an issue um, pertaining to the Constitution that is discussed by or covered by your preferred presidential candidate. So uh, let's say, for the sake of argument, that I want to vote for, or I want Bernie Sanders to win the next presidential election, and I'm specifically interested in his drug policy. So maybe I want to see what the Constitution might have to say about drug policy, and specifically the legalization of drugs. And so, even more specifically, maybe cannabis or marijuana legalization. So that's the policy that I'm going to write about. Okay. So the first thing, I need to see what Bernie Sanders says. And so if I go to Bernie Sanders' official website here, I can see he has a section on drug policy, and a little bit further down, he says that marijuana ought to be legalized. I can get more information if I click on that, and we've got even some potential sources of information that I might use. Um, a proposed bill, congressional bill, etc. I can look at his track record on the topic, so on and so forth. But I need other sources, right? So let's move on. Maybe I need, well, actually, let's look. If we go to the document, research paper document, you can see that you have to have at least 8 sources for your paper. And among those 8 sources, you need 5 different types, and they can be any number of possible types of information sources, ranging from magazines, newspapers, books, journals, so on and so forth. Personal, letter, movie, video, etc. Most of these we can find using um, the library's research databases. And one in particular, OneSearch, might be really the only source that you need, or resource. So let's take a look at OneSearch. OneSearch is on the library's homepage here, and it's located right here in the middle of the page. And you can simply put in, whatever it is that you're interested in. So let's say I'm interested in cannabis legalization, right? So that's the topic at hand. I need a bunch of different information source types on that topic. You can see, before I get into the specifics here, let's take a look at what we have. So on the left side of the page, you have a number of filters that you can set, and these will simply narrow your search down to specific item types. So maybe just newspaper articles, or maybe I need to adjust the date so that I only get more recent publications from the past decade, or something to that effect, so on and so forth. So that's the filters, or sometimes you'll hear them referred to as limits, a way to limit or refine your search, narrow it down by in a variety of ways. Over on the right side of the page, I really just want to mention one thing, and that is our 24/7 chat. So this really is 24/7. You should get an answer within a minute or two, and you'll be live chatting with actual librarians. Believe it or not, you actually have to go to graduate school to become a librarian. So these people are highly qualified. They can help you with your research in the context of whatever it is you're doing. So again, 24/7, you can access it right here within OneSearch. And then also on the library's homepage, there's a chat box. Let's see here, right over on the right side of the page. And then back to our OneSearch search results, you've got the chat over here, you got the filters over here, and then in the middle you have your results. So it's rare that the very first search that you conduct is going to be the best possible search. So what can we do to improve upon this search? So to do that, I'm actually going to go to the I've got my original search here, and I'm going to click on advanced search because this is going to allow me to construct a better search. And what do I mean by that? Well, for one, um, sometimes you'll hear about cannabis, medical cannabis or cannabis legalization or growing cannabis or whatever it might be. But then equally as often you hear it referred to as marijuana, right? Medical marijuana, medical marijuana or marijuana legalization, etc. It's the same thing. So we can use the or operator. So this is basically useful for any time you can think of a synonymous search term. If you were doing, death penalty, you could say death penalty or capital punishment. Exact same concept, right? And then we're going to put legalization again, but actually we're going to truncate it this time. And to truncate a search term, you add an asterisk. And so this way we're going to get legalize, legalization. You would actually get legalization spelled both ways. And what do I mean by that? I mean Z, American spelling, and then S, British spelling, right? Legalize, etc. All these variations on the term. So again, it's a way to expand our search. Both of these options using the OR operator and using truncation, which again, in just about any search that I conduct, I use these. I'm not just making this stuff up, and it's useful stuff. But both of these will expand your search and give you more results. And then lastly, I'm going to put in United States because for this paper especially, I'm focused on the US Constitution, and if I just put in cannabis legalization, I'm going to have sources from all around the world, legalization in Cambodia or wherever it might be. So this way I'm getting just results that have the term United States, and specifically the phrase United States. That's what the quotation marks do here. They find the exact phrase. And so now let's hit search. You'll see we still have tons and tons of results. So we could continue to add search terms to narrow this down. We've still got over 300,000. But let's look at ways we can narrow it by the type of content. So one of the primary things you'll want most likely is journal articles, scholarly journal articles or academic journal articles, peer-reviewed journal articles. It's all the same stuff, right? So let's click that. And then again, let's make sure that it's, I'll click scholarly and peer-reviewed. So now we're down to 23,000, still a whole lot, but we're not going to worry too much about narrowing it down further and further. And so now I've got a variety of research articles, peer-reviewed journal articles that I can choose from, and I can simply click the link full text online here to access it. Now, what will happen if you're off campus, which most of us are right now, is it will ask you to log in, right? So I actually had I had to click another link here. Sometimes there's not a second link, it just redirects you. But in any case, the first time you try to access a subscription resource like this, a journal article, a newspaper, whatever, it's going to prompt you to log in. And again, you're just going to use your A-State username and password. And after that, after you've logged in once, as long as you've got the same window open, you should be good to go. You shouldn't have to worry about logging in again. And everything should be seamless as you access it. So hopefully it'll let me in here in a moment and we can see the actual article that we were attempting to find in the first place. Well, we'll get back to that in a moment. So we can filter, we can go through our results, select the ones that are best for our purposes. Cannabis use, attitudes, and legal status in the US, or review. One thing you can also do is you can get a preview where you can read the abstract. This is especially useful for scholarly journal articles. You often want to read the abstract first, which is just a summary of the article, right? And go from there to decide if you want to read the full text or not. Another useful thing is you can format the citation by clicking this little quotation mark here. And so if I'm using the MLA style, it will format it for me. You do still want to double check and make sure that this is correct. So if you have the MLA handbook or another source that your professor has asked you to use, don't completely trust this, but often it's close enough that you can just make a few adjustments and then it'll be correct. So journal articles, pretty straightforward. Click scholarly peer reviewed, click journal article, but there's all sorts of other stuff too. And the way we might look at that, let's take off scholarly and peer reviewed, is by clicking on more. And you can see there's all sorts of source types that we might look at. There are, of course, books, but there's also, say, government documents. There are, newspapers, right? I'm actually going to show you another source for newspapers, videos, so on and so forth. But let's say we want books. Books are often something we want. So I'll click book/ebook here. I'm going to get rid of that. And then I'm going to click apply. And so now everything is either an ebook or a physical book. Ebooks, of course, will say online like that. And then a physical book won't have the online indication. So this one, Weed the People, that's pretty clever. The Future of Legal Marijuana in America, you can see, is a physical book. I know that because it's in the general collection, which is on the 2nd through 5th floor of the library. I would write down this call number and I would go and retrieve it from the shelf. But most of us, again, aren't coming into the library right now, although it is currently open as of April 3rd, 2020. However, we've got lots and lots of ebooks, right? So maybe I want Considering Marijuana, Legalization Insights for Vermont and Other Jurisdictions. I don't know if I'd want that one. Maybe The Business of Cannabis. In any case, I can simply read the full text ebook. And then again, we can go through and we can select other types of sources for our research. But let's move on and let's actually look at another database. Hopefully you've got the hang of OneSearch so far. It may be the only one you need, but I do want to emphasize once again that you need to tinker or adjust your search until you've got a solid set of results. So if it's just the first thing you put in is often not going to be yield or provide the best results, right? So let's go back to the library's homepage, and I just want to mention, I'm not going to get too much into this, but I want to mention a couple of other databases. And you can get to these, I'm sorry, by clicking on Research Databases on the left side of the library's homepage. And the first one I want to show you is specifically for finding newspaper or other resources too, but I want to show you one nice feature that it has that can help with newspapers. So again, let's do the same search or a similar one. And all right, click search. So ProQuest Central is just a very big database. Lots of good stuff here. But specifically, if I want newspapers, I want to show you this. I can click newspapers. And then, so there's all sorts of newspapers around the world. Which one should you choose, right? Often what I'll do is select ones that I'm familiar with. And one thing that ProQuest Central does that's nice is you can sort by the publication title. So you can see here, I've got some publications, and these are where the most articles have been published. So maybe I want to select the New York Times, which I've heard of, or the Washington Post. A major world or any big city newspaper is often a pretty good start. If you've never heard of it, like the targeted news service, I don't know what that is. It's probably like a news wire, which is kind of a syndicated sort of news source, which is okay, but I might want something from an actual newspaper. So maybe I just want stuff from the New York Times. So I'll click include here and apply. And then everything will be articles from the New York Times. Maybe I want stuff that was published recently. So I'm going to say sort by, the most recent articles first, and then find the ones, that I want to use for my research. So that's ProQuest Central, and then there's one other database I want to talk about. Let's see if our article never did open. Oh well. If you have any kind of trouble, just hop on the chat and someone can help you figure out how to access whatever it is you need to access. But the last database I want to show you that I think you'll find especially useful for this project. Again, I'm at the library's homepage, research databases, and then there's one called opposing viewpoints in context. And this is really good for the type of paper that you all are writing, because it covers like big social issues, you know, controversial topics, where there are opposing viewpoints on it. And you can search, of course, but another thing you might do, especially if you maybe are still struggling with what to write on. I don't know if I imagine you've selected a topic at this point, but you can just browse the issues, and you can see that it's got just all sorts of again, big social issues, controversial topics, things like that. So let's just go down to drugs. Let's see, whoops. Or we could even go specifically to marijuana or cannabis, but let's do drug. Here we go, drug legalization. And then what you'll see is there's, of course, an overview of the topic, but you have all these different source types. Again, you've got academic journal articles. Those are always nice, of course. But you also have these viewpoints, which are kind of like op-ed pieces, or like persuasive articles, not entirely dissimilar from the type of article that you're working on. So these viewpoints are pretty nice, and you'll often see, since they're opposing viewpoints, you'll see one side argued and then the other side argued. Obviously, anytime you want to argue for a particular position, it's helpful to know the arguments on the other side, the opposing viewpoints. Because if you can't address their arguments, then your argument is going to be weak. But in addition to these viewpoint articles, which are unique to this database, by the way, that's the nice thing. These are kind of unique. You have like reference materials. A reference material would be like something from an encyclopedia or a dictionary or something like that. You also have videos. That's always nice. Those are one of the source types that you can use. Audio, which is often radio pieces or podcast pieces. You can see here, for instance, this is from All Things Considered, which is a national public radio program. News sources, again, from things like the New York Times, Washington Post. Statistics, these are often kind of fun. Sometimes they come from like government, they're like demographic information or government sources, things like that. Or just polling. So this looks to be like, well, an interesting article, little graph about people how they feel about marijuana legalization. Okay, so between those three library databases, OneSearch, which again, right here in the middle of the page, library's homepage, ProQuest Central, and opposing viewpoints, you should have a large selection of resources that you can find information in. There are plenty of other databases that we subscribe to. Just if we go here, you can see 346 different databases. So obviously I can't cover even a fraction of those. However, if you struggle to find what you need, then by all means, contact me directly. You can find my contact information under faculty and staff here, or you can use the 24/7 chat that's located on the library's homepage and also nestled within OneSearch itself. And I'm glad to help you with whatever problems you might encounter. So good luck, and I hope to hear from you, or maybe not. Maybe you won't need me at all, and then this video will do the trick. All right.